Hello and thank you for joining us on France 24. It's time for us to cast our collective eye on Africa. First up, the headlines. At least 28 people killed in strikes on a market in central Sudan's Kordofan region. This comes as the civil war opposing the country's army and the paramilitary rapid support forces nears its third anniversary. How can businesses finance the sustainable transformation of the African job market and fuel innovation? Our correspondent, Tom Canetti, sat down with Sanda Ojiambo, Assistant Secretary General and CEO of the UN's Global Compact Initiative. And as Muslims around the world gear up for the start of Ramadan, the Islamic holy month is already inspiring many to give back to their communities. Welcome to the program. 28 people were killed in Sudan's North Kordofan region on Sunday following a drone attack on a crowded market outside the town of Sadari. This comes as the war opposing the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces nears the third-year anniversary. Emerald Maxwell reports.
The market was bustling over the weekend in Omdurman, with locals determined to stock up ahead of Ramadan, bringing a semblance of normality to a city located on the opposite bank of the Nile from the Sudanese capital, Khartoum.
We came back to the market about a month and a half ago. Things aren't as bad as they were before. The situation has improved. People are working again. The market is recovering, and we feel safe. But some traders lost their goods, and I'm one of them.
But insecurity continues in Sudan. According to a human rights organization, drone strikes by the army killed at least 28 people and wounded dozens more at a different market in the central Kordofan region on Sunday. Military officials have denied the attack. Since April 2023, the Sudanese army has been at war with the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, a militia that was initially part of the security forces but turned against them. The conflict has left at least 40,000 dead and 12 million displaced. Over the weekend, the United Nations renewed its push for an immediate ceasefire.
We have seen a carnage in Sudan that is totally intolerable in the 21st century.
The carnage in question, detailed in this report published Friday by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, killed over 6,000 people in 3 days, as rapid support forces launched a wave of unprecedented violence to seize the city of El Fasher, a former military stronghold. The UN said that resulted in widespread atrocities constituting war crimes and possible crimes against humanity.
Is the Orange Democratic Movement on the verge of imploding? The Kenyan opposition party, founded in 2006 by the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, appears to be in serious trouble following the death of its leader last October, with two rival factions each holding meetings over the weekend. Bastien Renouille reports from Nairobi.
On one side, the ODM leadership gathered in Mombasa, mainly around one man, Oburu Odinga. He is the brother of the late Raila Odinga. And then another meeting was organized near Nairobi by a faction led by Nairobi's Senator Edwin Sifuna, who is also the Secretary General of ODM, and he is supported by Raila Odinga's daughter, Winnie Odinga. This meeting ended in tear gas and gunshots from the police, and according to our colleagues from The Nation, which is one of the major newspapers here in Kenya, one person was killed by these gunshots. So why is ODM fractured at the moment? Mainly because of one question. Should ODM support the president, William Ruto, or should it remain in the opposition? Before his death, Raila Odinga developed a close relationship with the president, so many members of the leadership want to support his bid to be re-elected in 2027. On the other side, several leaders like Edwin Sifuna believe that ODM should run with its own candidate and that the party should remain in the opposition, at least on certain subjects. And so this position does not align with the party leadership's wishes. That's why Edwin Sifuna was removed as ODM Secretary General last week, a decision that was later overturned by a Kenyan court. So ahead of the 2027 presidential election, this is a political saga that will be closely monitored by Kenyans.
How can businesses finance the sustainable transformation of the African job market and fuel innovation? Our correspondent, Tom Canetti, met with Sanda Ojiambo, Assistant Secretary General and CEO of the UN's Global Compact System, the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative that pushes businesses to follow the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, to discuss the future of Africa's workforce and the economy.
Sanda Ojiambo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
One of the recurring themes over the summit has been working with Africa rather than in Africa. Can you elaborate on that for us, please?
So let me take a couple of issues. If you looked at energy and renewables, which is a huge business investment opportunity, African continent has an abundance of solar energy, strong hydro and geothermal opportunities. So really those looking to invest in energy need to see how to work with Africa to be able to build both capacity as well as, products that are, that will drive forward renewable energy investments. Of course, a critical topic is the question of critical minerals, because they're so important both for the digital transformation as well as for their innate value and, every other piece of equipment that uses some of these materials and metals. But of course, here the bigger question is not simply the investment, but, value addition, beneficiation, and more equality, of African economies and countries in this whole trade and business around critical minerals. So many other areas, Africa has the largest consumer market. It has a growing labor market. It has a demographic dividend in its young people. So it's truly, as we say, the moment to do business with Africa. Make sure that African business and political leaders are at the table. We're looking at value addition. We're looking at building skills.
So Africa has the youngest population of any continent in the world. Can you explain to us how this young population can be utilized for economic growth?
Absolutely. I mean, the first is, as you said, it's a population to be utilized. It's often seen as a liability. I think it's one of Africa's greatest assets. You have a youthful population at a time when around the world, population growth is declining. You also have a population that, by and large, at least for urban youth, are very digitally savvy. The mobile phone is so ubiquitous here. People are on their mobiles. They're driving e-commerce. They're using mobile money. The young people are highly engaged in, small and micro business areas, etc. And so, for me, the youth population is one that is ready to work, can fill in lots of gaps. Mobility, I think, is absolutely important. We're working a lot with the AFCFTA, and I think the question is, how do we create an African continent where there is mobility of goods, services, and people, so they can find jobs as and where, things are possible. So I think it's more about looking at young people, looking at mobility as an asset for what we need to do.
Finally, de-risking Africa has been another popular theme over the weekend. Can you explain to us what investors mean by de-risking the continent?
There is a perception that Africa is, first of all, a risky population to invest in. And, I think a lot of entities and institutions, including the ECA with whom, we're working with, have spent a lot of time making sure that we can challenge that perception. We can't necessarily change what credit rating agencies say, but there's a couple of things that are really important. One is using available African capital to invest in the continent and to demonstrate that the continent is investable. So I attended the launch of a liquidity facility being put together by AUDA NEPAD, part of the African Union, as well as the Association of African Multilateral Development Banks. And it was impressive to see them come together, leverage finance to demonstrate that, we should be investing in Africa and it is not a risk. There have been lots of discussions around leveraging philanthropic capital to go in and also help de-risk. But the other part was just, really focusing on how Africa itself, business leaders, political leaders, African capital, can go in and kick off projects and project financing. Lots has been said about pension funds. There's massive pension funds, around the African continent from some of the larger economies. How do we put those to use in terms of, development, sustainable business-related investments?
Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Meanwhile, Muslims around the world are gearing up for Ramadan. With charity work being one of the key staples of the Islamic holy month, one initiative in Egypt has been preparing food parcels to help struggling families. Laurent Berstecher tells us more.
Lined up inside a warehouse in Cairo, charity workers diligently filled up boxes with food and other items. The packages were then set to be distributed to families in need during the holy month of Ramadan.
This year we're aiming to feed around 7 million people. We started planning for the campaign 5 or 6 months in advance to be able to achieve our targets during Ramadan.
For an entire month, Muslims across the world will observe a daily fast from dawn to sunset before gathering in the evening to share a meal with their families. The Islamic holiday also encourages religious reflection and charity work, which the Misr El Khair Foundation has been engaged in since its creation in 2007.
I always see this charity packing Ramadan boxes every year for families in need, and I've always wanted to be part of the volunteering team.
As they geared up for the holy month, Cairo residents were also roaming street markets, buying decorations and food to break the fast.
Every family has to bring the Ramadan spirits to the whole households. But this year, prices are really high. So we're buying half the amount of foods that we usually get.
The holy month of Ramadan is set to start later this week with the first sighting of the crescent moon.
And finally, he is known as the Giant of Morocco and is now recognized as the tallest man in Africa and the second tallest man in the world. Standing at an impressive 2.46 meters, Brahim Taikula's extraordinary stature has secured him a spot in the Guinness Book of World Records. In addition to his height, the 44-year-old also tops the international rankings for foot size, sporting a comfortable size 58 shoe. And that's all from us for the moment. Stay tuned to France 24. We'll be right back with more news.